everyone. A very good evening to you all. Thank you so much for joining us in this Focus of the Month series. And we are here already in April 2023. It is a perfect time for you to look at the funding, financing, and the region research. And I'll tell you why. Because at the end of the day, it is very simple. People think graduate school applications can be complicated, but it's not. You may think it's very complicated, but it's actually not very complicated because it's very simple. At the end of the day, you just have to know where to apply, when to apply, how to apply, and what should you put it in the application. That's all, right? But then where can be the challenge is definitely in understanding where to apply. And that is where we are going to give you multiple tools and multiple ways for you to think about this big problem, right? You have to know how much it's going to cost you, and then how are you going to be able to finance your thing, as well as what's kind of the research that the region that you're going to be in. In case you're wondering, I'm Kritika, one of the co-founders of Career Life. You must have interacted with me definitely, or you will be interacting with me like this in the different Focus of the Month sessions. I'm an alumna of University of Michigan, as you know, but most importantly, qualified to help you guys and really privileged to help you guys, and very happy to do so. So I would request one thing. We put in a lot of effort in these Focus of the Month sessions because we want to tell you about what is happening. Some of you might know everything, which is amazing, but some of you might be very worried about how am I going to do it, right? And that's why we have these things. So first is we decide okay, so what are you applying for, or when are you applying is very important to discuss, right? And then we look at where are you right now, because without understanding where you are, you can't really plan ahead, right? You can't really utilize your time in putting in the efforts. And then comes about where should you apply, because where should you apply is the most critical question. Because today there are 1500 graduate programs which are legitimately okay for you to apply, literally. Okay, at least in the US you have 400 reputed graduate programs, so any of these programs can give you results. Okay, and then of course when you look at programs abroad and elsewhere, there is just so many things. So where you apply becomes very important, and then of course what is involved in applying, right? That comes later, or which is like your how to apply part. Okay, so we have basically done all of these sessions, and we really hope that you come to these sessions and get benefited from them. In case you miss any of them, like we have some of the ones, there is a Career Labs course portal where we have uploaded all of them, and I'm going to show you how to access it. So this is a Career Labs course portal, and there are two ways of accessing it. One is you can go through the servicing portal. We like to call it the unified portal. We have all our services on it. That's the reason for the term. There you can go and access the course, or you can just type lms.thecareerlabs.com and then go away for it as well. So the first way, see, by the way, just checking a couple things here. So I will launch those polls as well. That will help us understand where you stand. Just tell me quickly which semester you belong to, or if you have already graduated, you're working. You might wonder what is that others, right? Some people have taken gap years, trust me, after COVID, and so we brought that in. Okay. All right, so many of you are probably in the 6th semester. And now see, like what I'm showing you on the screen, were you guys able to access this particular course? Very good. All of you were able to do it, no? So you are awesome. So you guys know it. And anyway, just for, just to refresh, you can access the course by clicking on this button, etc. And then you can also access the course by going to lms.careerlabs.com and logging in using the registered Google ID that you have with us. Okay, very simple. We put all the information over there, and that's how we start, right? So outline of today's session is very straightforward. I'm gonna tell you about how the region comes into play. So we're gonna talk about the region, definitely a little bit, because behind all this, see, without knowing the region, you won't know the financial planning, the funding, and the scholarships, and the way forward. So region is also definitely in there. And for this is a good time for you to get the handouts. I have a lot of handouts for you guys here, and I request that you please download it. Again, it will be available on your portal so that you can access it anytime you want, but you can also download it today for the sake of the discussion today. All right, I'll be showing that as well. So I will try to keep this to the maximum one. See here, one of the couple things that you definitely want is you want to understand the importance of financial planning, how to manage your budget, but you also want to understand the region first, like which region to pick, because as I said, that is also going to make a decision. and then of course all the other things that are available for you, so that you know how to look at your masters and whether it's possible for you or not. Okay, because one of the questions that you will have, like where am I supposed to apply, is like how much can you afford. Okay, and then like how is going to be your life out there, and then how much budget do you have right now, and things like that. Okay, so that is what we will look in. Now you could be going in for a technical program or a techno managerial program. This webinar is for both of you. Okay, and if you're going in for management, masters in management, we have separate webinars for you as well. So that is something for you to take care. All right, so with this, sorry, there's a lot of noise. I think I'm going to request my team member to, yeah, thank you so much. I think there was some interruption here and it's now sorted. All right, so it's very simple. Like say every time we focus on something about the application. All right, so because we know that there are so many components which matter when it comes to the graduate application. All right, and this is a slide that you will see in every webinar of mine, whether I'm whenever I'm talking about admissions, because at the end of the day, this is all you're submitting, right? So today we are going to talk about where are you going to apply, okay? And then we're going to talk critically about which region to apply. When I say region, I'm talking about are you going to the US, Canada, Netherlands, Switzerland, etc., etc. And then we're also going to look at the cost of it, okay? So with this, let's move ahead. The next intake is definitely September 2023 and Jan 2024. And this is like a very good time for people to apply. And for this, you have to understand that the deadlines um, will start, right? So if you want to go for 2024, the deadlines are going to be in September 2023 itself. It can start. So it is almost like a year ahead, it starts about a year ahead for you to apply. And then the reason for that is because obviously to get the visa and other things and all that in life. Okay. This timeline is also something that you've seen. By now, you should have finished all the things that we have told you to do till here. So I really hope that you would have done it. And I'm going to just quickly check like where you guys stand on this, right? For graduate school applications. I know it's only April, and Kritika, are you asking me now? Right? I know it's okay. The reason for that is because it's never too late to understand what are the steps that are coming. And you might know that, okay, I have not done any of this. That is perfectly fine. It's just to know that you are coming and these steps are coming your way. All right, I'm just gonna close it quickly. What is the first choice for your region? Like, where are you applying? So this is what I mean by region. Like, of course, you could say North America, but then you could say no one wants to go study in Mexico, but Mexico does have a few universities. Yeah, so majority of you are trying to go for US. That's not very surprising. US still has like some of the better ones, right? Okay, so let's take a look at which exams are you planning to take among these, and which ones have you taken so far? Got it. All right. Thanks so much, folks. You guys are like answering really fast. So see, these are the two tests that you will be taking, no? One is like a GRE, and then another is a TOEFL IELTS. There's also Cambridge, Duolingo, and others. But majority of us, I think, are taking IELTS, TOEFL, right? And the likes. Okay, very nice. So you know that so you have going to take these kind of tests and all that. Can you guys tell me quickly when you're taking the test? Like, are you ready to take the test? See, we typically recommend taking the test by March. Okay, and if you're not done, you would definitely want to do it before like September or October, right, when the deadlines are there. Okay, so you should make sure that we have about 5 months left, how we are like utilizing this time period. All right, so anyway, so today what are we talking about? We are talking about how to start researching on your graduate schools and how to obviously consider the research region and the funding. Now some of you might come for spring. Those of you who are applying for spring, the deadlines are even earlier. Okay, much earlier. So by now you should have already started working on your essays. So that is the timeline for the people who are applying for spring. Okay, because obviously it is there. So anyway, when we look at the region, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep United States as like a fixed anchor. That was my drawing of an anchor. Very bad drawing, but you know what I mean. So US is going to be the anchor because majority of you want to go there, and we also have the rest of the regions. Now, why am I showing you this is because it is quite possible that, see, after you see the cost that we want to show you, it is quite possible that you want to consider some other region at this point of time, right? So and it is possible that the duration doesn't apply. UK sometimes has lesser programs, 1 year programs. Canada, US have about 1.52 years programs for masters. Okay, so we have taken MS in computer science as an example, and just to tell you like how it is. See, for example, GRE is very much needed for many of the programs in the United States, but in Canada it is not needed. Okay, but I have to tell you something. GRE is absolutely essential for most of the top programs in the world. If you're looking at an Imperial College London, you would want a GRE. If you're looking Nanyang University of Singapore, National University of Singapore, and then Nanyang Technological University, NTU, you need a GRE. Okay, so for top programs, you need GREs. Okay, and you might argue, hey, you know what? Last year they didn't have it. COVID was there, right? Yeah, COVID was there. That was the reason why they didn't have the GRE at that time. Okay, so but now many of the professors, admissions directors, and even the ETS folks, the ETS GRE folks that we talk to, they're all saying that the programs are bringing the GRE back. So they would want to have the GRE for the upcoming years, and it's going to be a integral component for many of the schools in the US and even some of the other schools that used to have it. Okay, and then of course you have the IELTS and TOEFL that is there. See, I had to tell you that for many long years in the United States, some of the universities did not like IELTS. Okay, Georgia Tech was one, and then Stanford was one. They did not like IELTS. Okay, but then after COVID, many of them have relaxed their policies and are accepting multiple tests and other things. So I should say that COVID made a big impact on the world, especially in the world of admissions. There have been a lot of changes that happened. And one more thing to understand is that it might be very tough in terms of GPA requirements. So for those of you who have backlogs, it might be very tough for you to get into United States, Canada, as compared to United Kingdom and even like Australia. Okay, Germany also has stringent requirements and so on and so forth. All right. So when it comes to other countries, so as I said, we keep the US as the anchor, and then you're going to have your other countries as well. um, you would see that many of them are having similar requirements, and there is something called as a post-study work permit, which is going to change according to the country and the rules that they have. Some of them will say I need a minimum 65%. Some of them will be like minimum 3.0. So the 3.0 typically, see, doesn't mean that you're going to get in, by the way. If you want to get into Georgia Tech, right, the average is around 3.6, 3.8 on 4. So that translates to more than 80%, 85% in India. Okay, so don't get fooled by the GPA requirements of the minimum criteria they're saying. It is a minimum they need to get in. That has nothing to do with the competitiveness on what is needed. Okay, so like this, you can see that there are many programs across the world, and you can see that depending on the region where they are, right, the kind of intake keeps changing, because obviously the continent, the hemisphere, blah blah blah, all of this come into play, and definitely the weather had a say in how these colleges have been established. All right, and then again, when it comes to Netherlands, France, and Switzerland and all, there are a bunch of other things that you might need. See, look, the number went up in some of the countries. All right, and then some of them say it is required for this particular university, right? So that's what I meant. So depending on the university and the program to which you're applying, many of these entrance requirements will change. And of course, you might also need a French requirement for France, German requirement for Germany, even for Canada, it's useful. For Switzerland, German is also useful, and so on and so forth. So, so whenever you're looking at a region, these are the bare minimum understanding that you need to have about the preference about the program. Okay, so this is a good time for you to look at the handout. I would want you to please open the region finalization checklist. Okay, and then when you open it, it opens up like this. This is a region finalization checklist, and you have many things here to consider. So this is for you later on. All right, I'm going to be explaining how to use this and how to get it done. Another thing that is there is a region-wise graduate school requisites, right? Whatever you saw on the screen, we have like made it available for you as a handy checklist, and this can be very useful for you when you're taking your when you're looking at your countries, right? At this moment. Okay. All right. So those two things are the ones that I wanted to come back to. All right. Now let us keep going and let us definitely look at the next point of how do I select a region? How can Career Labs help you for that? This is where what we did is we know that a lot of people want to understand how is life in the United States. Okay, how is a day in the life of a graduate student? How is the money? What happens there, etc., etc. So that is where we created an entire country-specific series. So where we tell you about studying in the USA, studying in Canada, studying in Germany, and you get the drift, right? So all of these are available. We will also be updating this with a couple of other countries that are already not on the list and then sharing this with you. Okay, so please go here and watch about the study abroad series, and that can be very helpful. I have to tell you that your decision about which region you're taking is going to be affecting your career, at least for next 5 to 10 years. It is a very critical decision. I know you're all in college and you're young, so you might not be thinking that long. See, for example, you don't really care what happens to you at 25 or 26 or 27 because just now you're probably like, not even 2021, right? So, but then that said, whatever decision you're taking now, whichever college you're going to go and whichever region you're going to settle in is going to affect you. That is where we like to think, like help you think about this in three different ways. Think about it in personal goals, professional goals, and financial goals. The easiest or the toughest one to decide is the personal goals, but it is easier in the sense that many people are always okay to compromise a little bit here and there when it comes to quality of life and society a little bit. I had this person who said that this was a guy who he absolutely hated the winter. Okay, and he had come to University of Michigan is like cold for 8 years, like 8 months of the year. When I say cold, I'm talking about minus 20 degrees Celsius kind of weather, right? On a good day, it will be 0 degrees Celsius. So it goes into negative like temperatures, and it's so cold, and this particular person hated it, right? But he still came there, because he was okay for compromising it for a short period of time. And once he did this course in financial engineering, and once that course was over, that was a very intense course of 1 year, and it was a very unique course at the Raw School of Business then. So he did it for 1 year, and immediately he ran away to Atlanta. Yeah, after the course, because he just could not handle the cold. So you might think it's a very silly story, but it is not, because your quality of life and like the kind of life that you envision, while you're not studying, while you're not working, is also important. And that is where your personal goals come in. And I would say the next easier thing to understand is your career goals. See where you want to be in 10 years. As I said, many of you may not even have thought that long, for that long range or long term. It is totally fine. Suppose if you come and ask me, what are you going to do in 10 years? I know vaguely what I want to do, but do I exactly know like what I'm going to do? Probably not. Never, right? But I know the direction I would take. Okay, whether a CEO, entrepreneur, which company, which targeted company, right? We really hope that we'll be able to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Career Labs by then in 10 years, right? And so on and so forth. So there is a lot of what you call it as goals that you would have, but you have to understand. See, for what, in the United States, on a H-1B visa, you can't be an entrepreneur. So if you want to be an entrepreneur, then United States may not be the right place for you in the beginning. Okay, unless you have a lot of money and you're going on another visa, right? On an H-1B, you can't do an entrepreneurship, right? So there are many things like that which you have to take into account. And definitely, I would say the easiest to decide is how much money you want in life, right? And how are you going to get it? So, for example, if you go to Stanford, many of you will command a salary of around $120,000 or $90,000, definitely. If you go to like one of the top programs, so when I was in the United States, I got a job which had about $85,000 as per annum as a salary when I first started. So it was very interesting. And yeah, those are critical points for you to consider. So to help you with all this, what we did is, that's where we have the region research worksheet, which I'm opening right now. I request you to do the same. So just open the file, the region research worksheet, and I'm going to download this file for you and tell you very quickly as to what it is. All right. So let's open the file if it opens. Okay, there we go. It opened up for me and it looks like this. I would request you all to please look into your own, open this in your own system and look at it. I'm going to be running through it really quickly because this is very straightforward and we have shown you a lot of sample that can help you very much as well. So see, this school selection is something that we did last time, if you guys remember. We said, okay, if I want to go and study, I should get so much salary. This is the cost I want to spend. This is the duration of the course I want to spend, etc., etc. So we had a lot of parameters which we discussed last time. Okay, so that is here. So you will have this as your like guideline to know which are the things that are very important for you when it comes to selecting a program. All right, now come to the next part. Now here is a region research worksheet. As the name suggests, this is going to help you to research on which school or region, sorry, which region you're going to go and settle down. So basically you're going to consider a few parameters and you'll have some questions around it. Example, do you want to go to an urban or a rural location? So I literally had a friend who was in University of Michigan Dearborn. He did everything he could to come to University of Michigan, and he actually did. So he moved along with his professor from University of Michigan Dearborn to University of Michigan. So it worked out for him, and he came to a better school. University of Michigan Dearborn was more like, I wouldn't say rural, but it's more of like definitely it's kind of like in the city kind of a school. Whereas Ann Arbor is like the entire the town is a college town, so the entire town is around the university. Okay, so that is the kind of thing I'm telling. And so you have multiple parameters and you're going to be asking these kind of questions for yourself in terms of what is the cost of living. Okay, the cost of living, very simple. I always give the example of Mumbai versus Bangalore. And see, Bangalore, you can get like a 3 BHK house for the same cost. You will get it like a 1 BHK house in Mumbai, right? And then similarly, like for example, New York versus LA, right? San Francisco versus Atlanta, and things like that. So a cost of living is going to be a huge role, and I'm going to show that to you shortly when we discuss the cost. All right. So you will understand that there are many things that are very related. See, employment opportunities, trends, and cost of living, all of them are related to cost in a way, right? See, what do you mean by employment trends and opportunities? At the end of the day, is how much salary you earn, right? When it comes to certain requirements. So that is where we have given you samples. So look at the samples and then you will get like a better idea of what it is there. Okay. So you can say that, hey, look, you know what? I want to go into a master's in MS and CS at the University of Michigan Ann Arbor. What is that you get? So these are things that are very useful for you and you start populating it. So what do I mean by short term, long term? It means that short term also I will be in Ann Arbor, long term also I want to work in Ann Arbor. So that is the meaning of it. Now there might be people who say that, in the short term I want to study in the US. After that I want to go to Canada. After that I want to go to Australia or UK or something like that. So that is also possible. Many of my friends have done that, because they thought that life in the US is very fast paced for them. So they went to France, and France is super slow. Trust me. And I don't know if you guys know, right, about the strikes that are happening in France, right, and all that. So they have been having horrible strikes for the past so many, like actually like couple months now. Okay, so like this, you can start looking at the thing, and we have given you like a way of how to do it. All right, and here's a sample. And after you do this research, what do? You would have decided, you know what, am I going to go to Ann Arbor or am I going to go to Toronto or am I going to go to Los Angeles? So you would have decided which works for you, and then you can always go back and plug this in your B school research the grad school research worksheet, right, where you're talking about like which country, which region are you going. Okay, so the region would be like something that you have already decided. So you will say that, you know what, I'm going to go to California. So I look for schools in California. So If the school is in California, it gets a bonus point, and then maybe I will go. I will look for schools in the Midwest, the Northeast, etc., etc. All right. So this kind of worksheet, this is all readily available to you, and we request you to go through it when you have a little bit more time about it. And definitely you should work on it. This will give you a better ability to think about all the possible parameters in the short term and the long term. Short term means while you're studying. Long term is after you go and work, right? Like for it. So these are basically the things. There is also a wonderful self-assessment test on the portal. Please take it up. Okay, because see, understanding where you want to work, where do you see yourself living? When I say living, I mean actually physically living. Where do you see yourself living? Is it a house, apartment? Do you want to settle down there, buy your property, etc.? What are the visa considerations, the PR, the work permit, blah blah blah, citizenship? What's the support system? I do know somebody was speaking to me today, one of my clients, and he said, the reason he's not going to some country abroad is because he is the son of a single father, and he does not want to leave his father, so which is very important, right, for him. He said that his support system lies here, so he does not want to go and live somewhere else for a long period of time, and he said that he has to be back in the country in 1 to 2 years. So that's what I'm saying in terms of what I mean by region. So depending on your circumstances, your things, etc., you are going to choose a region. All right, so I'm going to ask you something quickly right now. Which of these things do you think is going to affect your region preferences? When I say short term, you're only worrying about what to study, where to study. When I say long term, you're worried about getting like a PR, like that, etc. Thank you everybody for the vote. Sorry, I'm just looking at it. So some of you say I want to settle down, like the long-term goal. Some of you say that hey, the cost, like location, etc., etc. All of them are going to matter, right? Very good. So this is what we mean. Okay, your preferences will be different. See, many of you were saying I want to go to the US, but the reasons you're choosing the US is very different for both of you, right? And all of you here, right? So that is there. So awesome. So we come to the next part, which is show me the money, which is funding your MS. Show me the money if you want to get in there. Honestly, I can't tell you like how many nights, sleepless nights I had when I was trying to fund my masters, and it just happened. It was, I will say, like I'm very lucky. I had wonderfully supportive parents who were willing to invest everything they had. Literally, my dad gave me everything he had so that I could take a loan. Right. So financial planning is something that I consider as very important for my students. And even though you might take it from your parents and all, I think that it's your job to like fund your masters yourself. You will be adults when you're going in for a master's program, and it's your job to do so. So even though your parents would support you, please note that it is a luxury. Going to grad school is a luxury. So the prudent way of going to grad school will be to find opportunities on how you can support yourselves and of course help yourselves. Okay. So I have to tell you that it's super important because you have to stick to budget. You have less stress during the studies because you don't have studies due to finance. Okay. And you can avoid unnecessary expenses. Let me know in the chat if you want to hear my story of like how I had less money. If you say yes, I can tell you the story. Literally I had enough money only for the first semesters. Sorry, the first month, not even semester. So okay, a couple people are saying okay, go ahead. All right, so I will tell you the story in a minute, right? And then see, all these are the good things about the like having the financial planning. See, you cannot get a visa without having sufficient funds in the bank. Okay, you just cannot get it. Then if you can't afford your masters, what are you going to do in an alien country which you don't even know? Literally you will be treated as an alien, and I'm not even joking. Your status is actually going to be that of an alien status when you go to the United States. Okay, so I did promise you I'll tell you the story. I will tell you the story. So when I took my loan, I was very scared. My father and we were not that well off or anything. We were regular middle class people, and my father was okay to send me with whatever assets he had, but we were very clear that I was very clear that we're going to take a loan, right? And so I took like a loan of almost 80% loan completely of the entire amount. Literally I had taken the loan only for the first kind of semester, and that itself, the University of Michigan Ann Arbor is very expensive. So in the first semester, I had $15,000 to pay. So when we took the loan, this was a time where, and I will talk about it later, the bank will only give the money for the tuition, right? It will not give you money for some of the other things that you might need, like example, buying a laptop, your travel tickets, which used literally my travel ticket was about 1.5 lakhs. I'm not even making it up because in those days flights were horribly expensive, and it was 1.5 lakhs. So there are multiple factors that you need to take into account. So all the other living expenses, etc., etc., was not covered. Okay, so I had only, the bank already paid my tuition, so tuition was gone. $15,000 was in my was paid to University of Michigan, and I had literally $400 in my account. So with $400, I just had enough money for my first month, and my monthly expenses were about literally around $450. Okay, so then how was I going to live, right? So for that cliffhanger, wait, I will tell you the story a little bit. I'll continue the story and tell you when we come to that part. Okay, so anyway, so that is where, like I told you, the program type, I was going for an MS, like that is the first degree I got, and then I got an MS. The duration of the course was 1.5 years. Michigan was a public university. If it is a private university like MIT, they will charge you a bomb. Okay, the country was obviously the US. The exchange rates, when I went, this is the saddest story. When I went, the dollar, it was $44, right? Sorry, 44 INR to to a dollar. Okay, the next 6 months, this shot up to 60 rupees in a dollar. So just imagine my situation. Okay, it was such a worse situation, right? But this can happen to you guys as well, because we are living in a recession and a lot of things are happening. So you need to understand the currency exchange rates are going to be affecting you as well. Okay, and then when you come to the cost of living abroad, you need to understand living expenses, academic supplies. These are all the other things I told you, right? And when you're going for a loan, the tuition will be mostly covered. What about the other things? All the other things that you need, right? So that is also something that you'll have to plan. And here's like a quick understanding of you. Tuition is the highest. Next comes the room and boarding. If you're living in California, you can pay anywhere between $1,850 for a good sized room. Okay, and I'm not even making it up. It's so damn expensive in such a city. If you're living in Ann Arbor, you can get like an entire apartment to yourself within $600. Okay, so it really depends on where you stay. And here's like a quick example, right? So of a state university, typically a state university gets a lot of money from the state, for their states, right? More than this. Georgia Tech, more than the federal government, right? For them. New York University is a private one, so you can see that the cost is a lot. Okay, but for state universities, state universities also doesn't mean it's cheaper or anything. It's kind of like similar. Georgia Tech is like a little lesser, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these are like as per the, always check the university portals, they'll give you the latest information. One thing I have to tell you, every university will change their um like fees by 5% every this one. The only time it was held back was during COVID, but they will increase it by 5 to 10%. It can be any like minimum 5% increase will happen. Every university will do it every year. Okay, so whatever you guys are seeing, it is going to be 5% more, in the next year. And now you might wonder, hey, what about the other countries in the world? They must be cheaper, no? See, that is the reason why people go to other countries. You can see that university, Michigan and other people are very, very expensive, right? And so Stanford is a bomb. I had one of my clients who came to me in 2000. This was the first client who came, right? Like in the first batch, he came to me in 2016. Okay, he graduated in 2017. Okay, and it is 2023 now, right? He's still paying off that loan that he took from Stanford. He went for triple E program in Stanford, long time back. So he's still paying off that loan. So that's what I want to tell you. All right, and that's what you see when you're in this business for long. Australia, many of the universities have like very similar costs and things like that. France, your public university will be very less. Germany is the cheapest. This is why people scramble to go to Germany, but you know that if you want to go to Germany, you better know German, and you want to live there, and you better be okay with the kind of culture they have, etc., like that. Okay, and of course UK has like also like good things and other things to go ahead with. All right, but do not get fooled by this, because it's only in certain universities. Some of the other universities, London Business School, LSE, all of them will cost you anywhere between 70 to 80 lakhs. Okay, which is what we're going to see now. I know we are Indians and we probably are not thinking that much in terms of the dollar rates, but you know how much the dollar rate is now, right? And literally it's creeping up so much and so high. So monthly rent is going to be your biggest expense, followed by transport, especially if you live in a place like LA. And if you live in a place like San Francisco and all that, right, it is going to matter a lot. See, for example, if you live in New York, there's a lot of public transport. Even in San Francisco, there's a lot of public transport, but not the case in LA. And so, if you go to UCLA, right, you would be forced to live in places which are nearby there, or go in and buy a car, etc., etc., and all that. So, transport is also like a big expense. Okay, and I did promise I'll tell you my story, so I will tell it, don't worry. And see, another thing is, living on a particular amount in one part of the country is going to be very different than living on the same amount in a different part of the country. Example, California. Even if you have $90,000 an annum, it looks like, wow, $90,000. It was going to be very, very less for you. Okay, after like all the taxes, the rent, the groceries, and whatever you have left, right? This is because of the very high cost of living in that place. Now $90,000 in probably Indiana, Columbus, like in Columbus in Indiana. Indiana is a state in the US, right? There it is much, much higher, so you will be saving a lot of month. Why? Because the rent is not going to be $4,000 a month. It's going to be much, much lesser for you. You will be able to get a house very comfortably in $1,500. Okay, as I said, it's all about relative things. And you might wonder, like, why do I have to think about it? Is because you don't have to like necessarily factor this in, but you have to know this, that this is coming your way. All right, so this is something that's very important to know. And then here's an example of like the monthly expense of an international student, right? How much money they have, how expensive is it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so so this is something that can help you. Now note this word. You might think, oh, New York is cheaper. No, this is a 3 sharing apartment. Even with that, it is 600. So I told you my story of 450 per month, in that, when I was like 450 per month, I was paying $247. You might wonder, Kritika, how do you remember $247 all the way back, right? Okay, I'll be honest, I did my first master's in 2006. So it's a long time. So how do I still remember? Because I had only that much money. So I remember that amount, like, it was like a moment of transition for me, right? So I'll tell you like what I did shortly. So keep glued on to this, right? So of course there'll be monthly expenditures in multiple places. So we are just showing you this in order for you to get an idea of how much it costs in different places. Okay, and that is where we have your own cost of attendance calculator, so which is a very nice calculator. So I request you to now open the financial planning sheet. So there's a Career Labs graduate school research financial planning and research sheet here. Open it, download the file like how I'm doing it. And the reason I'm doing it for you like this is so that you know that I'm sending you whatever you are seeing. All right, so yeah, let's open that. So it opened. Enable the editing for it, and there you go. So I would really request you guys to go through the instructions. We have a lot of information for you over here which tells you about the various options that you have, okay, in terms of getting loans, in terms of financing by yourself, the scholarships, etc., etc. We give you scholarship details now itself, so that you know that these are the scholarships that are available to you. All right, so that you can start planning for it. So trust me that our team does a lot of work in trying to get people scholarships, but I have to also tell you that it is very hard to get scholarships. Most of my students are very what you call it, as accomplished students. Even though they don't come as accomplished students, by the time that they're applying, they would have done a lot of things. Okay, so it's very hard to get these things. And in fact, like, I remember that I went to this Narottam Six Arya Foundation. I got selected, but I did not get a scholarship. I got nominated for the scholarship, but I did not get the final amount there. Okay, so many of these are very prestigious ones that you can take into account. And this is the cost of attendance calculator that I was telling about. When I say cost of attendance, it means the entire cost for you to go and study in the master, like abroad, and then come back. Okay, and then we have like examples. Examples are what I love the best. So, how much is it going to cost you for you to go study in University of Toronto, Canada? All right, and this is the amount which will go into the grad school research worksheet. And then how much is it going to be for you to study in University of Michigan? And I did tell you, when I joined Michigan, it was much cheaper, guys, and now it's much more expensive. It has just gone like crazy. I have to tell you that it's a lot more, sometimes. And sometimes this amount may not even look right, because it might be like, you have to multiply by 3 semesters, right? And so on and so forth. So here is another thing. This is for University of Southern California, which is a private school. So private schools typically have more money. And see, this, by the way, is dollars, my friends. So that means that you're spending about 51.9 lakhs, around 40 lakhs, and so on and so forth. Okay. Um, so this is just given to you in a way for you to understand what are all the possible expenses and everything else that you might come across. Right. So with that, I think you guys are now experts and you're ready for my you're ready for my story. And this is what I'm going to tell you. So what did Kritika do after not having money in the bank? What I did was I first looked for on-campus work. I did look for on-campus work for a month, only a month, thankfully. That gave me money. I used to earn about like $15 per hour. So I was able to make rent and then pay for my living expenses. So that was what I did in 1 month. But then I did a smarter thing. I looked and approached many professors for assistantships. And I chanced to land a research assistantship for a professor, which was the best thing that happened to me, because my professor covered the funding later on. I did not have to pay any money at all after that. Okay, so because when you get a research assistantship, which is what I got, so there is a graduate school research assistantship, which is like, I can be a teaching assistantship, take a teaching assistantship, which means I teach. Okay, so I help the professor in taking their classes. So what do? You have to, like, what does a professor do? He teaches, he sets a question paper, and then he would correct it, he would hold office hours, he would clarify the doubts of people, etc., etc. So that is what you do as well. Okay, but then I got something even more higher or highly valued is research assistantship. So all I had to do was go do research and go study. I will get paid, right? So this was the best of the deals, and I did should say I got the research assistantship because of the kind of work that I've done before, and also the other things that I had in my profile, which is what was really helpful for me to get the research assistantship. Okay, and I worked for this professor for free during this 1 month. Okay, when I was working elsewhere, I worked for this professor, and that's how I got my assistantship. So research assistantship will cover your tuition, and you will get $2,250 in hand. So with that $2,250, I was also able to close my first semester ka loan. So that is the thing that I highly recommend my students to do, which is to make your profiles good enough to get a research assistantship or a teaching assistantship. And many of my students do that. Okay. Other thing is, another friend of mine did not get research assistantship or teaching assistantship, but he went for a internship. So in the internship, he earned about around $10,000, and that was sufficient for him. But you can go for an internship only after 8 months after 2 terms or 8 months. Okay, so that is something that he did. Now, of course, you can have money. I had another friend. This was very interesting. I told you only had $247 in my bank account. This friend, on the other hand, had her parents courier her food parcels every week. Okay, so there is like all kinds of people that you will meet. And okay, no offense to the friend, they were just born rich, and it's okay. So if you have your private funds, that's cool. That's something that works for you. But what if you don't have funds? That's where your loans come into play, and I'm going to be talking about it a little bit. And scholarships. See, scholarships are extremely difficult because it's all merit based. Okay, so not everyone's going to get it. So what you have to understand is you really have to work hard for what you can get, which is your assistantship, internship, and of course your on campus work. I'm not saying you're not eligible for scholarship. Don't get me wrong. So I'll tell you who got scholarship. See, University of Michigan. When I went, I was a topper. I did well, but then so were the other people who came, right? So the only guy who got that scholarship, department fellowship, was one of my friends who came from an IIT. He had about 15 papers before he joined the program. Okay, so that is how it works. So if you are a very studious person, and there was another guy who had around another patents, he had a lot of patents before he came. He had a full 4.0. In fact, he had a higher score as well, and he was a very smart undergraduate student from MIT. So those were the people who came to grad school, all right, who got the scholarship. So you have to be really, 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 really good if you want to get the scholarships. Doesn't mean that you can't work your way towards it, but the next better options and more feasible options are this. Scholarships are a matter of vacancy also. It's just like how the Oscar awards. You don't give Oscar to everybody, right? The same way scholarships are not given to everybody. So that's what you have to understand. Okay. All right. So with that, okay. So yeah, thank you so much. You guys have voted. And I was just checking for one more thing here. Sorry, 1 minute. So when you come for abroad, right, as I said, you can take from multiple places. So for example, your savings, loans, etc. I'm going to tell you about NBFC. See, I did tell you about my story where I got it from a bank, and the bank wasn't covering many things, right? So you guys have multiple options, and trust me that you can take from a bank, you can take from an NBFC partner. We just want you to be aware of all the possibilities that exist. You can also take a loan from the grad school. So for example, University of Michigan has a credit union, and so do many of the other USC also does, and so on and so forth. Okay, so it is possible to get it, but as I said, aim for these are the ones that will really, really help you. You don't see, this is more like someone is paying you to do a master's, right? So this is what I would really want you guys to get, like, in terms of the financial options. But yeah, whenever possible, you do have to take a loan. Okay, so I'll leave you for a moment to read what is on my screen so that you can understand what is a teacher assistant, research assistant, a graduate assistant. Okay, sometimes when I say graduate assistant, it can be somebody. See, I had a couple friends who were working for the International Student, Advisory Board. Okay, in a formal capacity. So that is also possible. Um, so you basically work in multiple roles that are possible. These are jobs, and that's why you're getting paid, and that's why your tuition is getting covered also. All right, so this means that I had to work 20 hours on my research every week, in addition to studying. So it is a lot of hours, but it is fun. I cannot tell you that, I still consider my time in grad school to be one of the funnest times in life. Okay, and it is the case for many, right? So yeah, so this is the TA. They have to basically handle the job of the teacher, the professor. RA can take, like, many kind of research. Research can be of many varieties, like some involve experiments and all that. One of the things that I did was to roll over trucks. As a grad student, it was really, really fun. And this is what you do. So I did tons of simulations. I did, like, the tons of setup. Okay, I did a thesis. So all fun things that happen. On campus work is, you might be interested in what kind of work I did. So I was working as a support assistant on some tickets that were raised for C tools, which is basically like just like your platform, right? So all the University of Michigan courses will be uploaded and done like that. So before the world of Zoom and other platforms and all, the University of Michigan used something called a C tool. So I was helping them with the support work and everything else. So that is there. People can work in cafeterias, in libraries, bookstores, whatever. So these are basically doing jobs around the university as a way of getting funds. One thing you have to understand when you go abroad is that no job is lame. A lot of people do a job as a waiter and things like that in order to get money. But if you are smart about it, you would want to try some of the other options that I told you. Okay, and here's an idea of, like, how much is on campus is allowed, and then how much is allowed during the off campus time, right? See, off campus meaning it will be in summer when you do not have classes. Okay, so what is the thing, and so on and so forth. Off campus, on campus means you can, like, basically on the university, so you can take up a job anywhere in the university. Off campus means like not in the university, it's not a university job. All right. So yeah, these are things that are going to be very useful to you to understand. All these scholarships we have already shown you in the one. Again, these are very tough to get in. They also have requirements. A certain background is needed. Credentials are needed, and so on. These are all merit based. Okay, that is something that you have to understand. Scholarships are merit based, as I told you, and doesn't mean you can't get one. So you should try to build your profile to get one. Okay. All right, and loans, coming to the loans, there are so many different types of loans. And I'm going to be specifically talking about NBFCs because honestly, um, when we did a survey, right? Many of our people who got admitted, they were taking loans from non-banking financial corporations as well as the other school-specific loan providers, and then banks. So these were the top three they were taking. Now this need-based scholarship is only as a need-based. Matlab, you cannot go unless you get the money from the university. This is very, very rare. So I have to tell you, this is not an option for everybody. This is rare. Okay. So, all right. So then, yeah, this is typically for people who are coming from, say, I had somebody who came from Uganda, Botswana, and things like that. So those people, and then I did have somebody who came from a very poor background, you know. So they typically get this kind of need-based funds. Is not for everybody. Reverse mortgage is something that you can do. This is something that's coming up as well as an option. When it comes to education loans, what you have to understand is they will cover a certain portion. But the good news is you can retain your savings. You get income tax benefits if it's from your own country, and then things like that, right? So these are some of the advantages of having it. What you have to understand is the NBFC will cover a lot of things. It's quicker and hassle-free, flexible approach, etc. So that is there. We are having a lot of these NBFC providers, and you can see that many of them say collateral is needed, not needed, etc. And then there is a tenure by which you can return the loan, which is very important for you. So the longer period you have, the better breathing space you have, but then the interest may also be high. So there's a lot of trade-offs that happens. So this is where it is important for you to get started, to start adulting, I would say, to think about all these financial aspects. Okay. Now, when I say coverage, I told you about my bank. My bank was giving only tuition fees, right? NBFCs are ones which will cover everything. Okay, so that's where we have some partners, HDFC, Prodigy, Oxilo, Incred. You might know that these are all different people, right? And why do we have different people, right? Because we want to provide our customers with options, right? You can always, if whenever you're ready, you can always come to Career Labs and say if you're interested. You would get better benefits as well when you were like applying to them through us. Whenever you're checking any kind of financial planning, you really have to take all these into account. So if you go into a top university, the interest may come down. There are many types of loans. There are many types of access to grants and scholarships, different modes of payment, etc., etc. So this is something that you have to check. Okay, and also please keep into account the pre-departure cost. As I told you, there are a lot of other things that you might take into account. You should have, like for example, in Canada, no, you should have the equivalent of 1 year worth of tuition fees, living expenses, etc., in the bank. Okay, the Nova Scotia bank that they had, you had to put it in the bank. So for example, whatever is the money that you need for 1 year, as stated by the college, you have to keep that amount in the bank. Okay, and as a kind of like surety, otherwise you won't even get a visa there. So like that, there are many things that will come into play, and all these things you have to take into account. Okay, so this is very straightforward. I just want you to look at my screen and quickly take a look at what is there. And you might all wonder, hey, this is all going to happen later only, no? Like, yes, for you, technically, all this will happen maybe in March of next year. But the thing is that unless you start planning and have a little bit of idea on how to take the money, what to do, and how to prepare your parents actually, right? And other people who are going to sponsor your education, about this. So knowing that will help you. All right. So before I jump into the next one, I wanted to just have like a quick understanding of how you guys are going to plan the financing and other things. Got it? Very nice. Excellent. Um, Sorry, I just had a small snack, but I'm just gonna quickly like share these things to you. All right. See, how much are you planning to spend, right? Because you saw the cost in many of the universities. It's anywhere between 35 lakhs to 80 lakhs. I had to tell you, there were in many of my webinars, there have been couple people who said money is not a constraint, which is nice. Okay. All right. Excellent. Fine. Just a couple more questions about before you do. Who will you have as your um, co-applicant for the loan? Trust me, we do have many working professionals who come in for their master's programs, and sometimes they say that my spouse is going to sponsor me while I go and study. So, which is perfectly fine, and which is very nice to have somebody support you. Okay, all right, parents for the win. Okay, and say how long are you going to consider playing the loan? So these are all the things that you have to take into account. Okay, see whether you're taking a collateral free loan, from whom are you taking, what kind of other opportunities will you also consider. And what I advise my students now is to start looking for research assistantships now itself. See, for example, a bunch of my clients got admits, right? They're all going and joining in September of this year, but they have already started working with many professors from their college. So, in fact, like what we do is something called as a grad school success strategy webinar, wherein we request people to think about how to utilize the time between April to September so that they can make all their other things easy. Okay. All right. One last question before you go. Sorry, two last questions before you go. What are you most confused about today? Like, I hope that funding was clear, so don't tell me it was confusing. Even the region should be clear, but I'm just kidding. It's quite possible that you are still thinking about or still having a little bit of confusion about anything that you might have. So go ahead and let us know in terms of which one it is for you. So one thing you have to understand is finalizing your career goals is an important choice because it also affects the region, the cost, everything else as we discussed. Taking GRE GMAT is going to be a long thing, which takes some time. You have to shortlist your grad school programs, identify your recommenders, take the test, etc. Right? So you all know that we have been discussing this for some time, but these are the actions to be done. All right. So that is where it is important for you to uh, please keep focused on the whole process. Okay. So the next month we are going to talk about, okay, so last month we talked about researching. Okay. And today we did more deep dive into the researching about the schools, like how do I decide which region, which cost, etc. So next month we're going to do like, see, what is going to be the set of 5 schools to which I'll apply. So we're going to do the shortlisting aspect, and I'm going to also share with you a couple case studies, very interesting stories. So before you come next time, please look into the course portal and then look at any of the other things that you might have. Okay. And I have like one last question for you. What did you find was very important for you today? Okay. And I definitely promise this is the very last thing. And I see there's a question about will it be too late for me to take the GRE? No, it is not. GRE typically needs about 3 months. Your deadlines will open, I mean, your applications will open in September. Some of the deadlines are in October, November, December, right? Depending on the program. Many of the deadlines are in December. So it should be fine. It is not a problem. So don't worry too much about thinking that it's late. It's not late. In fact, I'm sure summer holidays are coming up for people in terms of the time you'll have. Do go ahead and then, think about using. Okay, so I request one last vote from you. There's another question here. So, when is a good time to use these worksheets? I would say right now. See, to be very honest, it doesn't take too long because we have the country specific series. We tell you about what is life in USA, Canada, etc., etc., Germany. Okay, so you already know like what is life there, whether you want it, whether you like it, etc. So right now you're forming your preferences only. So you can definitely like look into it and then take it up as well. All right. Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. And until I meet you next time, I really hope that you will take advantage of our course portal and all the things out there, and definitely, like, move ahead for your MS application journey. So till I see you next month, again in May, you know that it is all on the calendar, and we go as per that. All the very best.